elected representatives who raise their voices for citizen concerns are not unheard of, but they definitely are. Today, I have the honor of conversing with one such politician, one such elected representative, Mr. Rajeev Chandrasekhar. My name is Surabhi Hodigere. I am a political entrepreneur, and on behalf of Swarajya, I will be talking to Mr. Rajeev Chandrasekhar on various issues that he has been working on in the last decade. You have called yourself as a Bengaluru activist. Very interesting name. But what I've seen, last couple of years is that you're trying to make an activist out of every citizen in Bangalore.
Correct.
So where does that passion for citizen involvement in governance come from? And how has your experience been this past few years?
So I think it's a good way to start. I think I need to say a couple of things. One is that I feel deeply about my city, Bengaluru. And so when I got into politics, it was clearly in my radar screen. Amongst the things that I wanted to do was to change the narrative and change the way our city was developing. So that was very clearly in my head in 2006 when I entered politics and joined parliament. So I have a sense of responsibility and I have a deep sense of duty to my city. The second thing that I have learned over the last decade or so in politics is that I as an individual or you as an individual, we could have the greatest thoughts and greatest feelings towards a cause, and the cause here being Bengaluru.
Sure.
But unless you have a large number of people share in that vision, share in that belief and share in that passion, it just becomes very difficult to make an impact and to really create change. So very soon it became my endeavor not just to espouse what I believe needs to be done in Bengaluru.
Right.
Or not to just talk about what I'd like to see in Bengaluru, but to get more and more people to believe what I believe. More and more people to see the problems of Bengaluru the way I see it. And more people to come out and say, we want to protect Bengaluru just as you and I want to protect it. And so for several years, I was disappointed that people in Bengaluru would say, oh, this is bad, that is bad, and they would complain and then they'd go back into their shell and have another day.
Right.
But over the last few years in Bengaluru, one of the proudest things that I have seen about the city is more and more people coming out of their comfort zone, more and more people stopping their whining, and more people, wanting to stick their neck out and do the right thing by the city. So if you see the Steel Flyover Beda movement, or if you see the Lakes, United Bengaluru Lakes movement, today you see the Hosa Zoning Beda movement, you are seeing people saying, this is our city. We are the true owners and stakeholders of the city, and no government, no MP, no MLA, no corporator has the right to exploit, destroy hundreds of years of heritage of the city. So people are now becoming activists. People are not becoming activists to become activists, but they are becoming active in saying, we want to reclaim our city and we want to protect our city.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why has that happened in the last few years?
No, I think
your observation.
If you see the history in the last 10 years of this country, whether it is the Lokpal movement or any other movement, including, in my opinion, the clear and decisive mandate in 2014, there is an underlying message. And that message, of course, is now well understood in Delhi, and I think it is taking a little bit longer time to percolate down to state capitals like Bengaluru. And the message is the following, that for the last 70 years, the political class has treated the citizen as a group of people whom they had to meet only once in 5 years. And that it was enough to give them some sops before the elections once in 5 years, and citizens would, like a herd of cattle, follow the political rhetoric and the political sloganeering blindly. Over the last several years, that has changed. The dynamics of the politician being here and the citizen being this mute, powerless person in our democracy has changed significantly. And more citizens are asserting themselves and saying, we are the vital cog in our democracy. In our scheme of things, the politician is supposed to serve the people and not the other way around, that the people are supposed to go after politicians. That dynamic is being slowly but surely changed. And it is difficult for some politicians to comprehend it. It's clearly difficult for many politicians to adjust to it.
Sure.
It is even more difficult, in my opinion, for some citizens to comprehend the power that they have. But it is increasingly becoming more and more comfortable for citizens to get very comfortable with the concept that we are the ones they should be accountable to, rather than we going outside the corridors of power or sitting outside the door of a minister or MP or an MLA and saying, please do this for us.
Right.
So the please relationship, I always say the begging relationship, the please relationship is now being inverted. And the center of gravity of our democracy is truly, slowly but surely shifting. And it's only happening because of people saying, no, we want to redo this, we want to redefine this.
I completely agree with you. I think it is a colonial relic, maybe, that we think that we have to be subservient to our leaders. But how do you think processes, institutions are changing in order to adapt with this? And I'd like to talk specifically to Bengaluru. Having lived in different cities, Bombay, for example, Mumbai, for example, has a profitable municipal corporation, whereas in Bengaluru, we see that it's always loss-making. Although Bangalore contributes 30% almost of the state's revenue. What is it that we're doing wrong in terms of institutions?
No, so we are doing many things wrong. So let me start by saying urban local bodies. And I don't necessarily agree with your characterization of Mumbai. Urban local bodies, whether they are in Bengaluru or Mumbai or Delhi or wherever, are amongst the most corrupt government institutions anywhere in this country. I never hesitate and I never tire of saying, in our democracy of 3 tiers, we have a central government and parliament, then you have the state legislature and the state government, and then you have the urban local body of the panchayat. The worst kind of corruption, and ironically, the least oversight is in the urban local body. Let me tell you something, which is a fact. The urban local body affects your life and my life more than a parliamentarian does, because he looks after your road, the electricity, the water, the garbage, the sanitation, the law and order. But the electoral turnout in an urban local body election will be half of a parliament election. So now if you have 35% turnout or 40% turnout in an urban local body election versus 60% in a parliamentary election, and you are now increasingly, let us say, electing better and better parliamentarians to parliament, but you're electing very poor, very terrible quality of corporators, which is also shutting the door on people who desire to join public life at the local body level. You're shutting out even those engineers or students or teachers or professors or whoever want to join. You're shutting them out because 70% of the people who would otherwise be wanting people like that don't show up to vote. So we have this significant conundrum. It's one of those quixotic situations in our country where the most important elements of elected representatives are the people that you don't go to vote for. And you then still complain. You complain that a corporator is a woman in a woman's reserved seat, but the husband really runs things. But that is because you didn't show up and vote for the other lady or the other candidate. So it is a real problem for the institution of the urban local body itself. The 74th Amendment that was passed by the Constitution, ironically, because of a case here in Bengaluru that went all the way to the Supreme Court and the constitutional amendment got done because of a BDA problem, is incomplete and requires review.
Right.
It talks about the principle of citizen involvement, but there is no institution in Bengaluru today. You can look at BDA's public consultation, BBMP's public consultation. Their entire instinct is to keep the people's view out rather than mandatorily bring in public opinion and public consultation. If you see the steel flyover Beda issue in Bengaluru, here is the government, they want to spend 1400 crores of public money to build a flyover, but they will do so without any public opinion and public consultation. They will not ask the citizen whose money it is. They will not ask the citizen whose need they are supposedly addressing with the steel flyover. And despite the Supreme Court in 2016 laying down what the rules of public consultation should be. So, to answer your question in a nutshell, every institution today in the urban local body, in an urban environment, is politically corroded, politically compromised, or at worst, completely captured by vested interests. And I never hesitate in calling the urban local body a builder contractor sarkara, because that is exactly what it is. It is not rhetoric. It is truly a situation where vested interests have captured almost completely the functioning of institutions that affect the common lives, the lives of common man. So, yeah, I mean, this may sound very horrific, but it's a fact.
I think something that we all know that happens but don't speak out too often. Speaking about the builder government nexus, you have been a strong supporter of the Real Estate Regulatory Authority bill, and then later the act. You were on the select committee. It has come to Karnataka after a 2-month delay, and there has been accusations of some dilution. And you've strongly spoken against the way that the government of Karnataka has approached this. In its current form, what do you feel about the way that the rules have been formed?
No, look, I think if you see what was the rationale and logic for the Parliament of India to pass RERA, the rationale was that builders in this country have exploited consumers. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. Consumers have had no rights vis-a-vis the builders. And conversely, builders have had no obligations vis-a-vis the consumers. RERA seeks to correct that. RERA basically says, if you are a builder, you have a set of obligations to the small consumer. And if you are a consumer, you have a series of rights vis-a-vis the builder. That is in a nutshell what the principle was. The Act then gave the state governments the right to publish rules.
Yes.
Of course, builders don't like it. I was on the select committee. I can tell you that we were under so much pressure from the big builders of all around the country. Oh, we will die. Oh, no, this. Oh, no, that. All that drama happened. But we stayed the course and did that. The delay here, I expected. I almost foretold it. And I said that a government that has such a significant influence of builders will have to be dragged kicking and screaming to do the rules. And that's precisely what happened. They delayed it, they deferred it, people went out and protest, there was media reporting of it, and media did a fabulous job of reporting it. And they got to a point where it became impossible for them to delay it any longer. So then what do you do next? They tried to tinker with the rules.
Sure.
I then sent them a letter to the Chief Minister saying, look, there is an order of the Supreme Court that says you cannot use rules to dilute an act of Parliament, because that is also illegal. So he realized, he backed off. Otherwise, they were trying to dilute the rules considerably. So now they have effectively diluted the rules with a clever series of wordage that creates some ambiguity about what constitutes a completed project and not completed project. Because the biggest issue or biggest impact of RERA is that all ongoing projects that are not completed and handed over will also come under RERA.
Yes.
And so they have tried to duck that and they've tried to navigate that in a clever way, but I don't think it's possible. People will test it legally, and there will be a lot of embarrassed faces in the government when the court rules on it.
Another issue that you've been very passionate about, urban Bengaluru centric, have been lakes. What I found interesting was that you spoke not just about protecting or desilting, etc., but also reclaiming our lakes.
Correct.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
No, look, I think people tend to make this lake issue an environment issue. I am not a green activist. And I can assure you that thousands of people who have come out to protect the lakes and agitate the lakes, maybe 10-20% of them are environmentalists. 70-80% are just normal citizens who are concerned that public land, public water bodies that serve for multiple purposes. What is a lake? What is the lake's function in our city? We are a plateau. We don't have groundwater. We don't have a sea, river flowing next to us. These lakes are catchment areas of water. Historically, they essentially maintain the groundwater table. They maintain the environmental fauna and the entire ecosystem of Bengaluru. And they also provide for drinking water and for rainfall.
Yeah.
The phrase for it, runoff. When you start encroaching lakes and you start killing lakes, two things happen. A, you are pushing the city into a water-deprived water crisis, almost irreversibly pushing it in a direction where you are constantly going to have to depend on Kaveri water, piped in, and as water shortages increase, there will be disputes legitimate disputes between farmers who want the water for irrigation, other states, the riparian states, upper riparian and lower riparian states that want to contest, they want the water. And then you have a city that needs drinking water needs. So we are almost wittingly being pushed into a place where we will have to fight for water. And fight for water with our own brothers somewhere else in the state. That is not required. So that is one. The second is, as you deplete and poison these lakes, you are also poisoning the ground. And so therefore you have a consequent effect on the environment and the fauna and the all of the stuff that makes Bengaluru what it is. If you remember, recently there was a flood in Chennai.
Yes.
2 years. And every inquiry report talked about the reckless construction on the banks of the rivers, on the banks of all those water bodies that cause water to back up. So therefore you also are putting Bengaluru into a situation where if there is, God forbid, some extraordinary weather, emergency, heavy rain or whatever, you are setting up the city for a crisis. So the movement to reclaim and protect the lakes is a movement to say we want to reclaim and protect the city as it is. We don't want a few builders who want to encroach the lake, an irresponsible set of pollution control people who want to kill off the lakes because that is the easiest way to dump pollution, to irreversibly alter the city. I consider myself, and almost all of these citizens who are involved, they bring their children because their narrative is, and they tell themselves that, and they tell me that this city is such a beautiful, proud city with such a long heritage. It can't be that this generation is presiding over the destruction of the city just because a few builders want to make that extra buck. And that is why this battle will be about citizens who believe that they are custodians of the city for a future generation versus those people who say, no, let's make a quick buck, kill the city, make our money and go and settle somewhere else. So this is not a trivial issue. This is an existential battle. I'm using metaphors like that, but this is an existential conflict between those who want to preserve the city for multiple generations and those who just want to exploit it and move on. So this is a battle that needs to be fought, and this is a battle that needs to be won.
You seem to always be on the side of those who are fighting against a larger establishment or a larger, a system. As an upcoming or an aspiring politician to somebody who's already established, where do you get that sort of energy, that belief that the system can be changed?
No, look, my entire life, I have not got anything on a platter. I mean, I have had to work very hard for everything. I'm a son of an Air Force officer, so I quite understand, and it is built into me, the concept of public service. Service is in my DNA. I mean, I know. I have seen my father get up and go in a uniform to fly and fight. And so that is not alien to me. So I considered in 2006 I became an MP. I didn't become an MP to put a red light on my car. I didn't become an MP to become a minister. I didn't become an MP to become another fat cat politician. I had made my money in entrepreneurship. It is similar. My entrepreneurship career also was exactly the same. I got into a space of telecom despite the big boys of Indian industry wanting to muscle me out. So I have learned this one truism about India is that if you are determined and dogged, the forces of right will prevail. But you have to be determined and dogged. It's not a question of saying I believe I am right and so therefore right shall happen.
Sure.
So I have an inexhaustible appetite for fighting. It won't go as long as I'm fighting on for the right cause. And the cause in itself is for me a motivator. For example, I don't consider what I'm doing for Bengaluru anything extraordinary. I believe this is what every citizen wants to do.
And it's necessary.
Yeah, and it's necessary. I am privileged that people can't take a panga with me that easily. Okay, now a lot of people say, no, you have the benefit that, people will not try and intimidate you that easily, or because, for a lot of people, for example, when we went for a lake visit, there were a lot of people who came to me and said, we've protested this 1 year ago, and then some gundas came to our house and threatened us and told us to shut up. So I would tell them, don't worry, next time anybody comes, call me. And let's see what they will do if I'm involved. So for a normal citizen, this kind of a fight is not easy. That is precisely why I assure them that I will provide the air cover required. As far as I am concerned, one of the problems with business entrepreneurs entering politics is they usually have something to be worried about in terms of business interests.
Right.
In 2006, when I entered politics, I made a promise to myself that whatever I do to earn a living in terms of investments, entrepreneurship, it'll all be out there for the public to know. Number one, that even if my worst enemy wants to scrutinize me, trouble me, harass me, that I will be able to tolerate that kind of scrutiny. So knowing that I have nothing to worry about, and this, in my opinion, this passion to protect what I believe in gives me, let's say, if you want to call it, you said the appetite for a fight. And that's what gives me the appetite for a fight. And it's not and I think my team knows, I have been accused, I have been abused, I have been threatened by, funnily enough, by political leaders from all shapes and sizes. And I'm still standing and they're not.
It's a long journey ahead.
Thank you.
One last thing that I'd like to talk to you about. You have introduced a bill that was to be discussed in Parliament but could not be taken up, to declare Pak as a terror state.
Correct.
Please tell us more about that, and how does that eliminate the most favored state clause that we have with them? No,
so look, I did this after the Uri attack last year in 2016. I do a lot of work for veterans and veterans' families. So when I met a lot of the families post Uri attack, I swore and I took an oath that I will do my best as a parliamentarian to put the spotlight on Pakistan. And I said I will bring a private member's bill. So I brought a private member's bill. It was introduced in Parliament in early 2017 and it was debated over 2 weeks. The government then came back through its Home Minister and in Parliament on record said, look, we don't need a new law. We have the powers that we need to declare Pakistan a terror state. So I withdrew the bill. So yesterday on 28th of July, I introduced a resolution. The resolution was that Parliament would resolve to ask the government to use its executive powers to declare Pakistan a terror state.
Okay.
And it is very important at many levels. One is, of course, everybody must declare Pakistan a terror state. There's nobody in the world who doesn't want to do that. But it is very important for another reason. Since 1994, the Parliament has never said anything about Pakistan.
Wow.
The last time the Parliament passed a resolution about Pakistan was in 1994.
Okay.
And one of the things that I learned after I publicly went public about Pakistan being a terrorist state, I have been swarmed by messages from people around the country. So it is clear that every Indian citizen, man, woman, or child, anywhere in the country, whether he is in Uttar Pradesh or in Kanyakumari or Orissa, everybody believes that Pakistan is the sole cause of the suffering for so many people. Every Indian wants Pakistan to be declared a terrorist state. But the parliament, which represents the people of India, has never done so. So that was the reason I wanted this resolution to be passed in parliament yesterday. But as I have learned over the last 11 years in parliament, between the good intention in parliament and the reality, there is always political disruption and an entity called the opposition.
Right.
And so unfortunately it could not be taken up yesterday. I'm hopeful that it will be taken up in a couple of weeks.
Sure. But a little bit more about the implications of such a resolution.
Okay, good. Sorry, I didn't say that. But my entire logic is declaring Pakistan a terrorist state will mean that the government of India will have options to deal with Pakistan that are not necessarily military.
Right.
Today, when we talk about Pakistan and there is a terror attack and some innocents die, our entire narrative is about let's go shoot something, let's go send soldiers, and that is not always the wisest move. In my opinion, violence and military action is always is part of our toolkit, but it should be exercised at the right time and as last resort. Exactly. So I have outlined in the resolution and in the private members bill a series of things that the Indian government and the Indian people therefore can do that are aimed at isolating Pakistan, economically squeezing Pakistan from a point of view of financial transactions. So I'll give you an example. Most favored NATO status between India and Pakistan, no need. We should abolish it. We should review the Indus Water Treaty. We should have a prohibition of Pakistani aeroplanes overflying India. Because for them to fly to Southeast Asia, they have to fly over India. So if you say, no, you can't fly over India, they'll have to go take a circuitous route. We should prohibit all Pakistani shipping vessels from entering Indian territorial waters. We should prohibit any Indian business from dealing with any Pakistani individual, Pakistani business, even if the Pakistani business is domiciled outside Pakistan. We should prohibit, for example, any financial transactions or money transfer between an Indian national and a Pakistani national or Pakistani linked entity. So there are a series of things we can do that effectively means that between diplomatic and military, we create options which are economic, trade and financial. And if you want to toss in cricket and cultural, you can toss in cricket and cultural as well. But the people of India are very clearly not happy with the status quo relationship that India and Pakistan have. The people of India, and I have absolutely no doubt, I'm not some national leader that I'll talk about people of India, but I have a good sense on this issue that the people want us to do more than saber rattling and military action and diplomatic niceties, and that we have to explore this middle ground of other options. If not today, tomorrow. If not complete, partial. And so therefore, when there is a terror attack and there is an unnecessary debate about a Pakistani actor being removed from a movie or an actress being involved in a movie, I don't think there's a need for that debate because it should come natural. Saying that the Indian economy cannot fund the Pakistani economy to perpetrate crimes on India. Because terrorism costs us by way of economy, not just lives.
Right.
So why would the Indian economy and Indian money be effectively boosting the Pakistani economy that is being used to perpetrate crimes and violence against India and hurt the Indian economy? So that is the logic.
Right.
And most people who have gone through it understand the logic that our relationship with Pakistan need not be through the prism of military alone. It should be also a $3 trillion economy like India flexing its economic muscle.
And the sort of support that you've gotten from?
Oh, I mean, this when it was a private members bill, it was debated 2 days in Parliament. except for the real hardcore, let us say, secularists, which we, unfortunately in Parliament we still have a few. Everybody,
Rajya Sabha specifically.
yeah, exactly, and there seems to be the meeting ground for them. Everybody else was completely agreeable. I mean, of course, there will be people who say, no, I don't think we should review this, but we can have this. 80% of it is right, 70% is right. All that will be there. But on the fundamental issue that Parliament must speak after 1994, that we must explore other options other than military and diplomatic, I don't think there is a man, woman, or child in this country that will disagree with that.
Hope to have more conversations in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.